Alright guys, so I am finally doing my November, December, January wrap-up. This is going to be more of an overview than a wrap-up because obviously it's almost May and I am rusty on some of these because I didn't just read them, but I'll just basically tell you what I read and maybe some brief thoughts about it, or maybe I'll just list it off. But if you guys have any questions about anything that I read, you can leave them down below and we can talk about it. In November I was starting my MCAT course, so I was really busy with that. So I kind of had a bit of a slump and reading half of so many different books, but I read first Days of Blood and Starlight, the second book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini Taylor. And I don't know what it was with this book for me, but it dragged on. Like, I don't know what it was, but it took me 2 weeks to trudge through this book, and 2 weeks is forever for me. But the writing was so gorgeous. Like, I love her writing. It's so poetic and beautiful. I just don't know if maybe in the middle part the action was slow or something. Other people love that book. It wasn't quite doing it for me when I read it then, but I did finish it and the ending of it was good, and I will at some point be reading the third book, but I haven't read it yet. Then I read part of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. And for some reason November was the month of half-finished books. I just didn't finish it, and I got busy with studying for my MCAT and it fell by the wayside, so I do want to finish that at some point. Then another one I finished half of. I started reading Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. I'll put it here. I started reading it. It was good. I read half of it, and I wasn't loving it, but I did like it. I read half of it, and then I just it went by the wayside again. I'm telling you, November was the month of the half-finished books. I started another book, Defiance, I think by C.J. Redwine. I only read about 40 pages of that before I put it down. I just guessed that with my studying for the MCAT, it just was a weird reading month for me. Then I did finish a book, I finished Days of Blood and Starlight. Then I listened on audiobook to Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. And it's read by Tina Fey, and so it was really funny. I just listened to that when I was in the car driving to different appointments or on a car trip, so I did end up finishing that. Then I read the Sweet trilogy by Wendy Higgins. So I had heard about these for a while, but I hadn't read them because if you can look at the covers here, those look like totally not my sort of book. The covers are just I see a cover like that and it's a turn off of wanting to read that book for me because it doesn't look like my sort of book. But I had heard some good things about them, and I just was looking for something to read right then, and I read them. They're a YA paranormal trilogy with the characters being like the children of demons, so they're like half demon, half human. The main character is like half demon, half angel or something. I remember liking these a lot more than I thought I would, and they were just entertaining. I mean, not the most amazing books in the world, but an entertaining read that I liked more than I thought I would. And so yes, I read those. Those are Sweet Evil, Sweet Peril, and Sweet Reckoning by Wendy Higgins. Then I read Cruel Beauty by, I think, Rosamund Hodge. I read that and I had only a few chapters left, like almost to the end, and then my library loan, it was a library ebook, so you can check out certain ebooks from the library, and I was almost done with it when it expired, and I just didn't renew it at that point because someone else had it, so I just didn't finish the last little bit, and now it's been a while and I don't know if I'm gonna finish the last little bit or not. It wasn't my favorite book, it was okay, but yeah, I never finished the last little bit. So Sam over at Novels and Nonsense did a Charles Dickens short stories and novellas read along for the Christmas season, which started in late November. So I read the short story by Charles Dickens, The Goblins Who Stole a Sextant, and then I read the novella by Charles Dickens, The Cricket on the Hearth. The short story was okay, but I really did enjoy The Cricket on the Hearth. It felt very Christmassy, even though it didn't actually take place at Christmas time, it just took place in the winter. But it was a really good novella that I hadn't read by Charles Dickens. Moving on to December. So December was an even worse reading month for me. I started reading What If? Serious Scientific Answers to Absurd Hypothetical Questions by Randall Munroe. He is the creator of XKCD. If you guys don't know about XKCD, you should go look it up on the internet right now. It is a webcomic and it is amazing, and if you don't know about it and you're a nerd, you will appreciate it. It's for all the science nerds out there. It's so funny. But he started this section on his blog called What If, where people ask absurd hypothetical questions. And I mean, this guy, he used to work at NASA, and he stopped working at NASA to write his comic full time. So he knows his science. And he started this section where people ask crazy, absurd questions, but he answers it with real science, like takes it as a serious question, things that would never happen, but he uses real science to say, well, if that did happen, what would happen after that? And it's hilarious and entertaining and wonderful. And I would have finished it in December, except that when I was checking it out of the library, this is a copy I bought for myself after the fact because I couldn't keep a hold of it at the library. When I was checking it out, the guy who checked the book out for me was this really nerdy guy who saw the T-Rex and the Star Wars reference on the cover and freaked out and decided that he had to have this, so he wrote down the name of the book. And then when the 2 weeks were up and I hadn't quite finished reading it, I couldn't renew it because someone else had put it on hold. And I have one guess to who stole the book from me, and it was that one guy who checked the book out for me. So I had to return it to the library and I didn't get to quite finish it. But then in February I ordered it on Amazon, so this is my own copy, so I'll be finishing it soon. But it's really good. If you love science, definitely check this out because I highly recommend it. It's so good. On the back says, "Hey, thanks for looking at my book. If you're thinking about buying it, here are some things you might want to know. Humans can't digest the cellulose in paper, but if we could, eating this book would give you about 2,300 calories, including the cover. This book can't stop most bullets. If you want to use it for armor, you may want a lot more than one copy. If you have a good arm, you could probably throw this book about 45 feet. With practice, it's possible to throw a book every 800 milliseconds, which means that if human attackers are sprinting towards you, you'll have 3 or 4 chances to hit them before they reach you. If, on the other hand, you're being attacked by a coyote, its higher top speed means that you'll have only 1 chance to hit it. Aim carefully. Hidden feature. The inside of this book has words and pictures. It answers many other important questions, including whether you could jump from a plane with a helium tank and inflate balloons fast enough to slow your fall and survive, yes. Or whether you could hide from a supersonic windstorm in Finland. Yes, but it won't help. Doomed, also doomed. So anyway, this is so good and so funny and so entertaining, and I would highly suggest this book. I also read The Winter's Curse by Marie Rutkowski. The premise of this book is that it's kind of in a Romanesque sort of society with a large military and conquered peoples, and the conquered people are slaves, and this girl is the daughter of the general of the conquering army. One day she finds herself at the slave auction and she really doesn't like the slavery thing, but she ends up just on an impulse buying this slave, and it's just kind of an interesting concept. Also, music is supposed to be sort of the conquered people's thing, not the conquering people's thing, but she really loves to play the piano. It's It was an interesting book. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite book of all time, but I will continue on with the series. I also started reading Mistwood by Lee Cypress. This is a book I got on Book Outlet. It's about a shape-shifting creature who she lives in the Mistwood, but when she's needed, they take her out of the Mistwood. What I thought was really interesting is that she doesn't remember being out in the Mistwood before ever, so that was kind of an interesting concept to me. But I only got through the first 60 pages before I guess I got busy with Christmas stuff and with my setting for my MCAT, which was in January, and I never finished it, so I'll have to finish this at some point. So that's all that was in December. Then in January, I had a much better reading month, so my MCAT was January 15th, so not much reading happened before then. But after my MCAT, I kind of went on a binge reading thing, so I reread all 5 Percy Jackson books, and that was the second time I'd read them. I'd only read them one other time, which was January 2010, I think. Yeah, so it was 5 years before. So for the first time in 5 years, I read all 5 of them again, and I loved them at least as much as the first time I loved them, which was a ton. So they were wonderful, and I really, really enjoyed rereading them. My plan was to reread them and then read the Heroes of Olympus books right after that, but I think I slumped out because I missed Percy's narration, that the Heroes of Olympus isn't narrated by Percy, so I decided to take a break and not read the Heroes of Olympus quite yet, but I will be reading them sometime in the next few months. So then I started reading Percy Jackson's Greek Gods, which I don't have, but I'll put the cover here. I had to return this to the library, so I didn't quite finish it, but I've read a little over half of it. It is wonderful. I would highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Percy Jackson. It's all about the different Greek gods, and actually a surprisingly comprehensive overview of the Greek gods, starting from the beginning of their mythology, which I thought was really interesting. But the best part is that it is narrated by Percy, so you get all his snark and funny comments, and it just makes it 100 times more entertaining. And if you guys know me, you probably know that I am a huge mythology nerd, so I love reading mythology anyway, even if it's kind of dry and boring, but when Percy narrates it, it's even better. So I would highly recommend you guys check that out, and I think I'll just be buying it for myself because I've done a back and forth with the library. Like, it's not the sort of book that you necessarily just sit and read the whole way through. So I was kind of reading a chapter here and there, but people kept wanting it at the library, so I think I'm just going to buy my own. I think it's only $14 something on Amazon, which is ridiculously low price for how nice of a big book with illustrations and everything it is. So I'm just gonna buy it probably so I can finish it. Then I read the Healer trilogy, or most of the Healer trilogy, by Maria V. Snyder. Maria V. Snyder is one of my favorite authors, and I reread the first book, Touch of Power, which I'd read a couple times before. This follows a girl named Avery who is a healer, but healers in the realm have kind of been hunted down because there was this huge plague, and people blamed the healers for the plague, so they're all hunted down. So she's basically on the run. She's captured, then she's about to be put to death the next day, but she is saved by people who want her to heal someone else. So she ends up going with them. She's like pseudo captured by them, but also saved by them to go heal the prince of another realm who is seen as an enemy. So she kind of has to deal with this psychological struggle of, should I heal this person or not, because he's technically an enemy to my realm. But it was a very good book. I love this series so much, and I've read it before a couple times, but I read the first book, then I reread the second book, Scent of Magic, which I had read maybe one time before, and then I started the third book, which I had not read before. I only read the first 40 pages though before I kind of slumped out on it, and I don't know why, but I seriously think that it's just because I read the Percy Jackson books all in a row, and then I read the first 2 books of this series all in a row, and was just a lot of binge reading of series in fantasy, and I just kind of petered out, and I wanted to read something completely different, so I didn't finish this, but I really need to finish it soon because this is one of my favorite series, this is one of my most favorite authors, and so I really do need to read the 3rd book soon. But that is all that I read in January, so this was just kind of a brief overview of November, December, and January. There wasn't a huge amount of reading going on in these months until the middle of January. If you have any questions about any of the books that I mentioned but didn't talk about a lot or anything, let me know down below. And if you guys have read any of these, tell me what you thought. If you're planning on reading any of these, let me know. And as always, if you have any recommendations for me, leave them down below because I would love to check out some more books. Always, I love recommendations. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!